Dan Hughes, thank you very much for coming along.
Certainly, it's good to be here.
Thank you. You have many years' experience developing methods for helping children, youth and families suffering acute difficulties stemming from childhood trauma and attachment disorganisation. Could you start by giving us an overview of what a good enough family looks like and what the core elements are that a child needs in order to be able to reach their potential?
Certainly, a good enough family looks like many families that you know, with parents providing their children with basic care, enjoyment, interests, comforts, activities, along with the core of safety, of course, and predictability. Those families are families in which being a parent is important to the parents. In general, they're going to have a good relationship with each other. They'll support each other and both be active parents. Sometimes it's not that way, but that's the goal. They will probably, if they had struggles when they were young, will have dealt with them to some extent so that they don't sort of relive the struggles of their childhood with their own children. One isn't, there's no compulsion to repeat your childhood. You can change it, but it may take work. So it's nothing dramatic. You don't need a consult with a therapist every week or have a psychologist living next door. In fact, that might make it worse because it could undermine your confidence. If you had decent childhood, chances are your intuitive sense of what your children need is what they need.
Now, of course, you work with children and families, children who are not living in families that provide that level of support, and most probably often parents who didn't get that level of support when they were children. So can you tell us about your model and how it works with both children and families to change that situation?
Certainly. My motto is, it did not come from rocket science. It came from basic knowledge about how human beings develop and relate to each other. And the theory of that is called attachment theory. It's the dominant theory in the world of how children develop and how all of us relate in our family relationships, our closest relationships. So I relied on that model because it hadn't been used at that point in time when I started developing this about 1990. Other models had been there for quite a while, but not the attachment model. So I wanted to build a bridge from that theory and research to family interventions. Attachment is about safety, so my first goal is to generate safety. Well, I realized fairly quickly if I want the child to be safe, the parents have to be safe. If I go to their home or they come to my office and I'm evaluating them, I'm judging them, I'm finding them to be terrible parents, I'm finding reasons to criticize them, there's no way they will be safe with me. So I have to begin to develop a relationship with the parents where they trust me. And I focus on their motives generally. They have good motives generally. Their behavior may be challenging. They may have failed their children one way or another, but they don't want to do that. When they had a baby in their home, when the child was 3 and 5, they wanted to be good parents, and they lost their way. But they probably tried their best. So I have to see that. They tried their best. I train many other therapists now, and my point is, you got to experience these people as good people. They're doing the best they can. They're really trying at this, and they love their kid. Or if they lost love, they want to get it back. And if you can experience that, then the parents will trust you. And then when you say, I think if you do this differently, your child might respond in a way that you're hoping he or she will, they will do it because they will not be defensive because they know my job is to build a relationship, not to be a threat to it. Well, if I can get the parents to be safe with me, then together the parent and I help the child to be safe, because much of my work is with a traumatized child. And originally it was in foster care or adopted children, or in group facilities with staff trained to be substitute family for these children. So it was these children who have been, say, traumatized by their original attachment figure through abuse or neglect. These children don't trust now. So when the parent sets discipline, they experience it as being abusive. They don't trust the motives of the parents. Nor do they know how to communicate well, nor do they know how to learn how to communicate well, because healthy babies, for example, love eye contact with their parents. They love to stare at their parents forever, whereas these kids don't look at you anymore. They stop looking at you. These kids, when you raise your voice and say, hey, I told you not to do that, they think you're screaming at them. They're so hyper-vigilant, hypersensitive to abuse and neglect that the slightest discipline tends to make them extremely defensive and possibly reactive. So I have to find ways to help these kids feel safe and learn how to trust these parents. So a lot of the work is with the parents so that they're more trustable, and when they discipline, they do it in a way that is aware that the child will be very threatened by routine discipline. And the parents have to be comfortable giving comfort and support with a child who doesn't want comfort and support, so facilitate that. And what I do in the therapy is I'm a role model for the parents. I coach the parents, and I'm very good at getting children to feel safe with me, talk with me when they usually don't talk to anybody, and then go into what they're feeling, what's gone on. So you got very angry with your mom yesterday. What was that all about? Well, she wouldn't let me go out and play. Oh, okay. Yeah, so why'd that make you that angry? Yeah, it'd make me a bit angry, but you're so angry you swore at her and threw something at her? You were very angry. Wonder why is that big? I don't know. Oh, why do you think she said no, you couldn't go out and play? She wants me to be unhappy. She doesn't care what I want. I'm not special to her. Oh, so that's it? Oh, no wonder you get angry if your mom wants you to be unhappy, if that's what you saw. No wonder. Have you told her that? So I facilitate that sort of dialogue. But the only way I could do it, and again, I'm influenced by attachment research, but also by intersubjectivity research, which is a whole nother field about how we influence each other through our own experience of them, as well as by new brain research, which shows how do you talk with kids so they don't get defensive with you. Well, this flies against the way most of us were raised. You don't lecture children, makes them defensive. The second you lecture a child, they get defensive. Then you can't influence them, maybe with fear or consequences. In the short term, you get them to do what you want. But they won't develop sort of an understanding of why you want them to do this, why it's in the best interest of the child and the family. And then they just don't learn it very well when you're lecturing them. So how do you address it? Well, you address it through more of a storytelling voice and way of relating. It's based on storytelling. The way in many cultures, I'm sure in Mexico as well, the story is a crucial way we have communicate with our friends and our family. We tell stories. That's how we influence each other. Well, I tell stories with kids. I say, my goodness, you had a hard time yesterday. I think you were very, very upset with your mom about she won't let you go and play. Yeah. I wonder why it's so upsetting. Yeah, I'm making meaning out of why he threw or spit at her or whatever he did yesterday, without shaming him, without saying you're a bad kid, because the kid gets so defensive, without saying, you need to do such and such, and if you don't do such and such, and we're going to take that away, and you better learn your lesson, boy, which, you're going down the wrong road. You won't influence a traumatized kid. Eventually, you might get them to comply if you traumatize them, but we can't compete with the people who originally traumatized them. So the only way is to help them to start trusting us. So my model is how to do that.
It's based on generating that trust.
Trust, safety, trust, and then they experience my experience with them, which I'm a detective for their strengths.
Right.
For what's delightful about them, what's special and unique about them, that they shouldn't be, they have no need to be ashamed of.
Mm-hmm. And so you're working with the parents and you're working with the child in different dynamics?
Different dynamics.
You will be working alone with the child on some occasions?
No, hardly ever. If I have major worries about the parents, or if something's not right here and it doesn't, and I think the child is and the parents might be holding something back, I might see the child alone. Is there sort of a secret here that the child is afraid to tell me? Sometimes it could be an abusive situation. And then I might see the child alone. But if I trust the parents, they're not holding back, I'm aware of, they might lose their temper and be over the top a bit, but then they have to trust me. If I have to report it because of possible child abuse referral, they have to trust me that I'll be right there, an advocate for them and a support for them. But in general, that, you know, the relationships I establish with parents, that's not occurring, then I don't see the child alone. Because I want them to develop an attachment to their parents, not to me, to the parents. You know, they're the real people in their life that they should rely on and turn for comfort and support and joy and all these activities. I see myself as a midwife to that process. You know, my job is to make it happen, not to be the person they attach to.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
And you're talking about work which is emotionally intense and requires a lot of skill. So what would you see as being the characteristics that you would look for in people who work with children and families with these difficulties? And how do you are, for very many years, very experienced trainer, how do you help people grow to be good therapists, social workers, carers?
Well, I treat the students, the therapists who I'm supervising or consulting or training, the way I treat the parents. You know, I have to find their strengths. They're good people. They're doing the best they can. They have a lot to offer this family, and I have to experience that and communicate that. What I'm searching for is therapists who will see the value of this. Because some therapists have a bias toward like cognitive strategies to teach people cognitive skills or anger management or something like that, or behavioral reinforcement strategies. I'm not against those, but that's not going to be the heart of the intervention. I'm looking for people who see relationship as a key component and facilitating emotional, I call it emotional, affective, like your emotional state, and that gets you to think, reflect, affective, reflective dialogue, to teach therapists who see the value in that. That means these therapists probably will have addressed their own history a bit, will have looked at aspects of their own life that might be challenging, and so when I ask them about it, they're willing to be open about it, they won't get defensive about it, which in fact is what I'm looking for when I look at their videotape of a treatment session and I say, I'm worried about this. They say, oh, help me understand why, rather than getting defensive. My job is to help people not to be defensive with me, and if a therapist in training with me is defensive all the time and starts to avoid stuff and not minimize things and be uncomfortable with the feedback. Yeah, it's the same as I give feedback to parents. Yeah, same thing. So I'm looking for that openness to this model. I'm looking at openness to their own life, ability to engage parents and children, see the value of the attachment. Some therapists have a bias toward sort of protecting the child, sort of more empathy for the child than the parent. The parents are too hard and this poor little child needs better treatment. Other therapists are more protective of the parent, that snotty little kid, he needs to just do what he's told. And I want a therapist who doesn't have a bias toward the parent or the child, because if you favor one or the other over the other, the one you do not favor is not safe. When a therapist says to me, you know, I like the kid, but I don't like the parents, I usually say something like this: I'm really glad you're aware of that. It really helps us know how we go forward here. As I see, you got three choices. One is to refer them to someone else. But if you refer too many to someone else, you probably ought to look for another career. So, because you got to, if you. Number two is learn how to like the parents, and I'll teach you how to like the parents. That's another possibility. Number three, take the kid home with you and raise him yourself. None of them have ever agreed to number three. I don't see any other options.
Right. So it's a real strengths-based model.
Oh, sure it is.
At all
right.
levels. Yeah.
But the strengths, at least in the States, too often we go lost. What strengths do we look for? Like, he's a good basketball player, he's good on the computer, he's good with math, he's good texting, or some behavioral strengths. Now, I'm not minimizing that as sort of a source of feeling good about yourself, but I'm after deeper strengths. You know, somebody who has persistence and courage and honesty and ability to be vulnerable and doesn't give up, and a core of empathy for others. You know, he may be mean to kids his age, but he's wonderful with puppies or babies or an elderly person. You know, I'm looking for personal qualities about a person, not just behavioral achievements.
Of course. Yeah.
Right.
But is there anything else that you would like to talk about that I haven't asked you?
No, anything else I would like to talk about?
Yeah.
Well,
The interview.
Oh, well, can I say anything about your program? The little I know of it is, I'm just very excited about what I've seen so far and what you're trying to do. And throughout, you have offices in 3 countries, right?
No, we're only
Just in
based
Mexico?
in Mexico,
Just
but
in
we
Puebla.
train in many
Oh, you train in
countries.
different countries. Anyway, the idea of doing that, and I'm very pleased that you're saying that, you know, things that should work in America or England, why don't they ought to work here too? You know, we're all human beings, and these people, wherever in any country, deserve a right to health care or social care or professional interventions, if it's going to be helpful and respectful, all over the world. And I love the fact that your agency is doing that. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much indeed.